Hello everyone, this is Devin Carroll. As a financial advisor, I've been helping people with retirement planning for well over a decade. So this may not be a surprise, but I think the decision about how to file for Social Security is really important. In fact, I think it could be one of the most important decisions you make. Unfortunately, it's also pretty complicated. The employees at the Social Security Administration don't really like to give that much advice. In fact, they would generally just point you to their website, which has 110,000 pages. That's right, 110,000 pages. So yes, Social Security is a little complicated, but it can be understood. You know, over the last several years, I've done a lot of speaking and writing and studying in Social Security. And one thing that I have found in all of this and in all of the questions that I receive from my readers is that most answers to Social Security questions can be found in a good knowledge of the basics. So I think you're going to find a lot of value in this. But before I get started, Social Security Intelligence does not provide legal or tax advice. And I don't want you to construe anything that we say here as such. Please discuss this all with your personal financial, legal, and tax advisors to make sure it makes sense for your own personal situation. All right, we've got that over with. Let's jump in. Okay, so the first basic that it's really important to get is, how do you become eligible for benefits? What do you have to do to qualify for an eventual Social Security check? And that's pretty simple. You just need 40 credits of work history. Now, credits are earned by, in 2016, $1,260 in earnings gets you 1 credit. $5,040 in 1 year will get you 4 credits. Now, you don't have to work those in calendar quarters or anything like that. As long as you have $5,040 in 2016, you're going to get the full 4 credits. Now, it hasn't always been that high. For example, in 1985, it was only $410 to earn 1 credit. So 40 credits of covered work, that's work where you pay Social Security tax, and you are eligible for benefits. So then the next thing is the benefit calculation. There's some confusion on this because there's lots of pensions out there that are calculated based on an average of the highest 5, average of the highest 3, but that's not the case with Social Security. They base their pension on the average of the highest 35 years of covered earnings, or those earnings where you pay Social Security tax. So they will use 35 years in their calculation, whether you have 35 years of earnings or not. So let's say that you worked 20 years and that was all that you had. So for example, if you have 20 years of work history, they'll still use 35, but in those other 15 years, they'll simply put in zeros, which of course would bring the average down. So if possible, and you're working and you're close to that 35 years, it may make sense to go ahead and finish it out and get the full 35 years of earnings. And then we have the full retirement age. Now, this is really important to get because the full retirement age is the age at which you qualify for your full retirement benefit. Now, over the last few years, that retirement age has changed a little bit, so some people are unclear on when their full retirement age actually is. If you were born between 1943 and 1954, your full retirement age is 66 years of age. Between 1954 and 1959, it increases by 2 months per year, and at 1960, your full retirement age is 67. At least that's the way it's set for now. That may change in the future, though. But for now, for everyone born after 1960, 67. And next we have the earnings limitation. You know, I still remember a lady at one of the speaking engagements I was giving who came up to me and said, "Devin, I didn't know anything about the earnings limitation, but I found out the hard way." In her bridge club, all of the ladies that were there simply told her at 62, "You need to go file." And so she did. But she was still working. They were not. And so when she filed for benefits, it didn't take long for the Social Security Administration to catch up to her and cut those benefits off. But here was the problem. She left the Social Security office the day she filed, and she drove down to the Toyota dealer. and bought herself a car. She figured that with the extra Social Security payment, she could afford a brand new car payment. Well, that didn't exactly work out. The Social Security Administration caught up, and they cut her benefit off until she was full retirement age. So here's the way it works. If you are under full retirement age, you cannot make more than $15,720 in wages or net earnings from self-employment before the Social Security Administration starts to withhold $1 for every two that you've gone over the limit. Now, the good news is at full retirement age, there is no limit on the amount you can earn. So what I often tell people is that even Warren Buffett is getting his Social Security check. The one caveat is that band right in the middle. In the year you attain full retirement age, so let's say that your full retirement age is 66 and you turn 66 on July 1st. Starting January 1 of that year, the amount that you can earn increases to $41,880. And then the amount that they'll withhold is different as well. So it's really important not to get caught by surprise with the Social Security earnings limitation. So next we have spousal benefits, and then we're going to cover survivor benefits. These two are closely related, and in my opinion, some of the most generous benefits that the Social Security Administration gives us. So I want to cover spousal benefits, then survivor benefits, and then I want to look at a case study that's going to tie it all together and hopefully make it make sense so you'll know exactly what you can expect as a spouse or a survivor. So, as a spousal benefit, the lower earning spouse is entitled to the greater of the benefit based on his or her own work record, or 50% of the higher earning spouse's full retirement benefit, adjusted for claiming age. Now, just to give you a real quick example of that, if my benefit is $2,000, my wife's benefit is $800, she is entitled to the greater of her benefit, or one half of mine, assuming we're both full retirement age. And so in that case, her own benefit would be less than half of mine. So she would be entitled to one half of mine. And then we have survivor benefits. For survivor benefits, at the death of the first spouse, the surviving spouse receives the greatest of his or her own benefit, or the benefit of the deceased. Now, this is reduced for filing age. It's important to understand that, and we're going to cover that in a moment as well. And then the lower benefit does drop off. So if my benefit is $2,000, my wife's benefit is $800, and let's say that she's getting the $1,000 for a spousal benefit. So she's getting a total of $1,000 in benefits. I'm getting $2,000, and I die. Her new benefit becomes $2,000, and her $1,000 simply drops off. Again, that's making the assumption that we are both full retirement age. So let's look at an example that's very much like the situation I just told you. Let's take Tom and Beverly here, and let's look at their benefit at full retirement age. So Tom, he's 66 currently. His benefit at full retirement age is $2,000. Beverly's benefit is, surprise, $800. So the question is, how much is she entitled to as a spousal benefit? If you guessed $1,000, you're absolutely right. Because remember, it's the greater of her own benefit or one half of his benefit. What about as a survivor benefit if he passes away? If you guessed $2,000, right again, because it's the greater of the two benefits. But hold up, remember I said that was reduced for filing age. So it's important to know that if you file before your full retirement age, your benefit amount will be reduced. And here's how it will be reduced. You've probably noticed on your Social Security statement that there's generally three numbers represented. One shows what your benefit would be at full retirement age. The next, directly under that, shows what your benefit would be if you waited until age 70. And directly under that would be if you filed at earliest eligibility, age 62. Now you'll notice that all these numbers are different. So let's take a look at each class of benefits to see how each would be reduced or increased by your filing age. So you'll notice that we've gone through here and we've named 67 as the full retirement age. So if your full retirement age is 66, it may be slightly different for you, but not materially different. So let's get started and let's look first at your own benefit. So you'll notice that 60 and 61, there's a not applicable in there. That's because you cannot file for your own benefit until you are 62 years of age. And if we skip all the way down the page to the orange numbers at 67, that's where you are eligible for 100% of your full retirement age benefit. And if you back up a year, you'll see that there's a reduction down to 93.33%. And the year beyond that, 86.67%, and it goes all the way to age 62, that earliest age of eligibility. You'd only get 70% of your full retirement age benefit. But if we go beyond age 67, you'll notice that it goes up. At 68, you get 108%. At 69, you get 116%. At 70, you'd get 124% of your full retirement age benefit. Now, very important to note that your own benefit is the only benefit that will increase in that manner. Spousal benefits and survivor benefits do not have what they refer to as those delayed retirement credits. So there's generally no need to wait until after your full retirement age if a spousal benefit or a survivor benefit is going to be the highest benefit that you are eligible for. And then we come to the spousal benefits. Now you'll see that filing for spousal benefits, the reduction is a little sharper. At 62, it's 65% of the full amount you would be entitled to, instead of the 70 like it is with your own benefit. At 66, it goes up to 91.66%, and then, of course, at 67, it's at 100% of the full amount that you're entitled to as a spouse. And you'll also notice that, as stated before, it doesn't go up from that point. And then we have the survivor benefits. Now, a couple of notable things about survivor benefits. One, you can file for survivor benefits as early as age 60. At that point, you're entitled to 71.5% of the amount that you would be entitled to at age 100. Now, there are also some filing strategies that you can use when you're filing for survivor benefits, such as filing for survivor benefit and then not filing for your own benefit until you're 70. It doesn't make sense for everyone, but if you can get that 24% increase, that could make a lot of sense. And now for the last Social Security basic, the length of marriage rules. Now this has caused more confusion for people than I think any of them have. Here's the way they work. For survivor benefits, you must have been married 9 months. For a spousal benefit, the marriage had to have lasted 12 months. And for either of those benefits, either survivor benefits or spousal benefits, from a divorced spouse, the marriage had to have lasted 10 years. So let me make one quick note on the divorced spouse category. I've now talked to 2 clients who were married for 9 years and 11 months. Their ex-husbands were both deceased, which means that they could have gone back had they been married 1 more year and filed for a survivor benefit. And for both of these ladies, it would have driven their own Social Security benefit up by several $100s per month. So an understanding of these length of marriage rules is really, really important. I hope you've enjoyed this short video course. If you have any further questions or want to discuss your personal situation with me, there's a link at the bottom of the screen where you can click, access my schedule, and we can talk on the phone. I hope you have a wonderful day.